All right, let's talk about an ancient practice with a pretty wild approach to happiness. We're always told to visualize success, right? Well, the Stoics, they believed the real secret to a good life was to visualize failure. It sounds crazy, I know. So let's dive into why this might just be one of the most powerful mindsets you can adopt. First, let's look at our own world. I mean, we are obsessed with positive thinking. You're told to make a vision board, repeat your affirmations, and just banish any and all negative thoughts. But what if that entire approach is actually fundamentally flawed? So let's just start with a really provocative question. Is it possible that our constant, relentless focus on the positive is actually draining our motivation? That it's making us less prepared, less resilient for when things, inevitably go wrong? It sounds totally backward, but there's some fascinating science here. A psychologist named Gabriella Owenting found that when we spend time on what she calls positive fantasies, just vividly imagining how great it'll be when we succeed, our brains get a little lazy. Our actual physical energy levels drop. It's because, on some subconscious level, our brain feels like we've already done it. We get that little hit of dopamine, that feeling of accomplishment, without ever doing the hard work. And that, of course, makes us way less likely to actually get up and do the work. Okay, so if just thinking positive has this massive flaw, what's the alternative? Well, for that, we have to go way back to the Stoics of ancient Greece and Rome. They had this incredibly powerful tool that just flips this entire idea on its head. They called it Premeditatio Malorum. And yeah, the literal translation is the premeditation of evils. Sounds pretty dark, right? But stick with me. This is not about being a pessimist or just wallowing in negativity. Think of it more like mental strength training, a strategic rehearsal for life's challenges, designed to make you psychologically bulletproof. The great Stoic philosopher Seneca just nailed the whole concept with this quote. The idea isn't to attract bad things. The idea is to rob them of their power if they show up. By thinking through potential problems ahead of time, you eliminate the single most paralyzing part of any crisis, the shock, the surprise. So what's the real payoff here? What do you actually get from this seemingly negative exercise? Well, it really boils down to three incredibly powerful psychological benefits. First, you build this mental armor, this incredible resilience. Second, and this one is my favorite, it does something amazing for your happiness in the here and now. It cultivates deep gratitude. And finally, it takes all that vague, fuzzy anxiety we all carry around and turns it into a practical, actionable plan. Let's break each one down. First up, resilience. This practice is for real like an emotional vaccine. You're giving yourself a small, controlled dose of a potential negative event, but safely, in your imagination. So if something like that ever does happen in real life, you're basically inoculated against the shock. The panic doesn't set in because in your mind, you've been there before. You already know you can handle it. Second benefit, and this one is a game changer, gratitude. You know how we all have this tendency to get used to the good things in our lives? Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. That great job, that loving relationship, your health. Over time, it just becomes the new normal. We take it for granted. Well, by briefly imagining losing these things, you suddenly see them with fresh eyes. It brings their value roaring back. It's the secret to wanting what you already have, and that is a powerful, powerful key to contentment. And third, it's all about preparation. Vague, undefined anxiety is the worst. It's totally paralyzing. But when you specifically imagine, okay, what if this project fails? Or what if my car breaks down? You can immediately start thinking, well, what would I do? It's just like a pre-mortem that businesses do. Imagining your computer might crash makes you think, maybe I should back up my files. It turns that formless fear into a simple, concrete to-do list. Okay, so the theory is solid, but how do you actually do this in your everyday life without just bumming yourself out? Let's get really practical here and look at how you can actually start using this technique. Here's a really simple 3-level way to approach it. You can start small, just with daily annoyances. Then you can move on to contemplating more significant loss. And finally, you can even rehearse how you'd mentally handle major life trials. For that first step, who better to learn from than a Roman emperor? Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man in the world, started his mornings preparing himself not for epic battles, but for dealing with annoying people. He'd just run through it in his head. By anticipating these little frustrations, he was arming himself with patience. He was deciding ahead of time that he wouldn't let them ruin his day. Now for the second step, contemplating loss. This gets intense, but it is so profound. There's a story a writer shared about how he was basically forced into this practice. His newborn daughter was in the NICU, fighting for her life. And every single day, when he and his wife had to leave the hospital, they had to face the very real possibility that it could be the last time they ever saw her alive. I mean, that heartbreaking reality is a modern echo of this incredibly stark advice from the Stoic teacher Epictetus. Now, hearing that quote, it sounds unbelievably harsh. But the point isn't to be morbid. The purpose is to generate an almost overwhelming, intense level of love and appreciation and presence in that single moment, precisely because you know that moment isn't guaranteed. And thankfully, that writer's daughter, she survived, and he now calls her his little living miracle. And it's also really cool to see that modern thinkers use this same core practice, but with slightly different goals. Some, like author William Irvine, really focus on using it to generate that deep gratitude we talked about. Others, like Donald Robertson, use it as a way to practice virtue in the face of hardship. And then you have guys like Brian Holiday and Tim Ferriss, who adapted into a super practical tool for seeing obstacles in business and life and then preventing them before they happen. So here's the most crucial point of all. After everything we've talked about, it is so easy to mistake this entire philosophy as an exercise in pessimism or just being anxious. But its true purpose is the absolute opposite. The goal is not pessimism. The goal is freedom. It's about getting freedom from the power that fear holds over you. Freedom from the power that the unexpected has to completely derail your life. By rehearsing these things, you're not inviting them. You are liberating yourself from the fear of them. And that brings us right back to Seneca and this short, powerful idea. Bravery isn't about having no fear at all. That's not human. Bravery is about confronting fear. And by confronting these potential futures in your mind, you achieve a kind of inner freedom that no external event can ever really touch. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What is one fear in your life? Maybe a vague worry that just sits in the back of your mind. What would happen to that fear if you just stopped running from it? And instead, just for a few minutes, you faced it head on in your mind? What power would it lose?